Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com, and welcome to this first video in a tutorial of the framework Svelte. Svelte is a little bit unique when it comes to creating front-end applications. Because when you use things like Angular, Vue, React, they're not compiled. Basically what you're doing is you're shipping the library along with your code at runtime. So essentially, even if you only use like one or two React features, if you're using the CDN or just any way, you're pretty much bringing in the whole React library along with it. So there's all this extra stuff that your user is loading, which, you know, depends on the size of the library. So like React and Vue, they're smaller sized libraries, so it's not too bad. But, you know, it's still extra bloat. With Angular, it's huge, which is why with Angular, you have like that module system. So that way you're only bringing in the stuff that you need and whatnot. They're trying to work that in there, and I think they have like a new, I forget what the name of the compiler is, but they're trying to create a new compiler that kind of deal with that issue. But you have that issue. Now, recently you've had this sort of new wave of front-end frameworks that are compilers. So I think first came along with Stencil. Stencil was from Ionic, and then Stencil was more created to create web components, so you can use them with React, Angular, and Vue. And that created much smaller bundle sizes, because when you compile, you don't have to include the full framework, you just include the parts you need. The compiler just sits there and says, turns your code away from Stencil code into just standard web code. And that's what Svelte does. But Svelte, the end result is even smaller, and the syntax is even simpler. So Svelte is easier to use, and the bundle sizes are even smaller than Stencil. Stencil is probably the next smallest. While Stencil's syntax is much more of sort of a mix of Angular and React, Svelte is kind of like a simplified version of sort of the Vue setup. And you'll see what I mean. If you've used Vue before, you'll see what I mean as we kind of go through it, where everything's kind of in one file, your CSS, your JavaScript, and your HTML. Versus Stencil, where you have your TypeScript files with your with JSX in them, so TSX files, and then separately you'll have a CSS file. And then you have to deal with all the TypeScript typing and all that stuff, which I don't mind, but can get annoying at times. But it's good for you. It builds character. But anyways, let's dive right into this. Okay, so this is the Svelte website, svelte.dev, and basically right here all you have to do is copy this command here to create your project. So I made a folder over here, Svelte, so I'm going to go cd into it. cd Svelte. And then in this folder, I'm going to run that command. And that's going to go spin up a Svelte project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause this while that does that. Okay, that's right. One moment. Base for you, this should work just fine. My computer has some weird permission issues that I have to do sudo for everything. So I'll just do that real quick. Okay, so I'll pause it while that gets done. Okay, and then once that wrapped up, you'll see this. It says clone Svelte template master. Okay, so now we cd, and this is the only folder in your folder right now, so my Svelte project. Okay, and then in here we should be able to just run dev. Let me just confirm. Actually, it's right there on the website, so let me just go over here. And so we're going to do an npm install because we're going to install the dependencies, and then npm run dev. So let's do that. So we're in the folder npm I, so that we installs all the dependencies. Oh, that's right, sudo npmi, because my computer is weird. I should probably just reinstall Linux from scratch, but I've just been too lazy to do that. Okay, so this is doing that. That's going to take a second, but let's kind of walk over here and take a look at the documentation, because the Svelte documentation is actually really good. So if we go to API, this is going to take us to the documentation while my computer decides to be very slow today. So it's getting there, but yeah, so you have everything kind of here that, as far as all the features. So, and that's one of the other things I really like. It kind of has, like a syntax that's very simple, very similar to Vue, but even simpler. Yet it has a lot of the things I like about Angular, like all the directives and all these kind of like helpful little things, the loop and create conditional elements and all that stuff that makes life a lot easier because you're not having to worry as much about state. And then on the whole issue of like having reactive state, having variables that change and respond, it's really easy. You don't have to do anything special. It's just if a variable gets assigned, everything updates itself. Because again, it's compiled. So basically, it'll just pick up on what would change and just create your code as if it changes at that point. It just, you don't have to do anything particularly special, which is nice. You're not having to worry as much about like state management. There are tools for and features to help you manage sort of variable across components, but it's just generally easier. Okay, so let's take a look. Did this finish up? Good. And then I think the next step was we run dev. I can just look at the package JSON. Okay, good tip. You can always take a look at the package JSON, and you can always take a look at your scripts. We're going to want to run dev. And unlike other projects where usually you see like Webpack, it's kind of like the thing that kind of bundles everything up and you run your scripts through Webpack. This uses Rollup. Actually, I think Svelte is created by the people who created Rollup, which is sort of another bundling tool. So that's cool. npm was sudo npm run dev. Okay, so that's going to start running. Let's take a look at the code. So we all know what the node modules folder is. If you don't know what the node modules folder is, then you need to be watching videos on npm and node first. You are jumping ahead. Okay? And then this rollup config file is just like configurations for rollup. You really don't need to play around with this, although it doesn't hurt to learn about rollup, so you can learn to see if there's any configurations in here you would like to play around with for, specialty purposes. But for the most part, you can just leave that alone. So all your code is really going to be here in the source. Okay, and in the file that's about to spin up, so it's localhost 5000. So let's go to localhost 5000. And you have this hello world, and literally it's just that file right there, this app.svelte file. Okay, I mean you have this main.js file. Okay, and this just looks like it just contains some state. So let's see here. Where's our public file? Right here. So this kind of represents what will be your index.html. So just so you can see how this is all put together. Okay, so svelte.app. We can change this to our app. So I'll just name this Alex Merced's Svelte tutorial. Okay, and then all it really does is just run this script. Okay, so essentially what it is when it's bundling it, and then everything's literally done as JavaScript. So you're not even injecting anything in the body. It's literally all done with JavaScript. It's just going to append itself to all your JavaScript to this body tag, and yeah, that's it. So you really don't need to touch this other than maybe changing the favicon and the title. But that's in your public folder, and then when you're done, it'll build everything out into here. Okay, right now it's just doing it on the fly because we're running in dev, but at the end of the day, when you run the final build command, the final build script is actually, what's the command here? Yeah, so it would be npm run build. That would be that. Okay, so that's in the public folder. And then here we have, not quite sure what this is doing yet, but here's your actual file. So basically what we're seeing on the screen is that every file comes with 3 parts. So this might be very familiar to Vue if you've used Vue before. And you don't even have to do this in this order. So but bottom line is you'll have a script tag where you can put any JavaScript that you need for that particular component. Then you have a HTML. Doesn't have to be a main tag. Literally, as long as there's one parent tag, because it has to kind of know what is your HTML. And that's going to be your HTML template for that component. And then you have a style component where you can put all your CSS styles for that component. Let me close this up to make some more space. Nope, that's not what I wanted to close up. Okie dokie. Okay, so that's what's kind of going on there. So you always have all 3 in there. And notice that basically any variable I want, I just export it. So, okay, so I want to export let name, and by exporting let name, I can then use it over here. And then basically through single brackets. So unlike Vue, you don't have to have this one big sort of object thing that kind of gives all your configurations for that component. You just put JavaScript in there. It's really simple. Okay. And let's just do a simple, like if I want to create another component, all I have to do is just duplicate this file. So we'll call it my component.svelte. Okay. And where did it go? Okie dokie. I'll just save it real quick. And there it is, my component.svelte. I don't even have to import it. Okay? So the fact that, so I can just basically, so here I have this, and I can just make a quick component. So we'll just start with the code. So div /div h1 hello world. And actually, even better, we'll do a script. And I'm just going to export const world equals hello world. Then I can just put this over here. World. And then style /style. Okay. We'll just do a quick, say h1, the color is blue. Save. Okay, so that component's created. That's it. And now I can go back to app.svelte. I don't have to import it if I remember correctly. And I can actually just use it. So now I can just put this down here as my component. Okay. Now if I hit save, let's go take a look. Let me go save this index. Okay. I gotta reset the server because I closed the terminal. Okie dokie. So now the server's up and running. Let's take a look. Okay, and it's airing, so that means I'm doing something wrong. So let's take a look. Where's it still? Okay. I see the thingy complaining. Let's see here. That name. So let me take this component out for a moment. Let's examine this real quick. Let's see here. And let's refresh that. Hello world. Visit this Svelte tutorial. So let's examine this. Okay, because this says hello name. Let name. Where did we define name as world? Did it do it over here, main.js? Maybe that's what's going on here? Yes. Okay, so const app equals new app target document body. So it's kind of like the object. Doesn't have to be there, but where is it pulling it in from? Okay, Boston might have changed. So let's go examine the documentation. Okay, boop-a-doop-a-doo, coordinate format, do-do-do-do, text attributes, comments, attributes, and props. Here's where I want to go. Okay, div class food, disabled, button disabled. Oh, okay, now I kind of remember what's going on here. Okay, here's the deal. I don't even need to export this. That's the issue. Where's my component? All I need to do is do this. The export is if I just want it to be a prop. Okay, so in that case, it'll just be export let world, so that way you can define the prop somewhere else. So in that case, let's see here, const world hello world. So if I leave that like that, that should fix our problem here. Let me put my component back in here. Okay. And let's see if that fixes the issue. Nope, breaks again. Okay, so that's where we had some trouble. My confusion is you don't have to export the component, but you do have to import the component. So I do need to import my component from my component dot svelte. Okay, I do need to do that. Make sure I got the syntax right. Yep. Okay. Let's take a look over here. Still angry with me. Okay, but let's go back and take a look at my code. So my component slash. Go back and import nested. Yeah. So if I take a look at my component that's svelte, that all looks good. I got the style, the h1, world is defined. That's all good. Okay. Well, that doesn't really matter. Import my component from my Svelte. That doesn't matter. So all looks good. Why does this not want to render? Oh, there we go. I didn't put the dot slash to make it relative. Dot slash my component dot svelte. That should do it. And let's go back over here. Let that re-render. And there you go. See, there's the hello world. So literally, just to kind of recap, you just make another component file. See, there's no export. I'm not exporting the component. It's just some HTML.